Hello, everyone. I'm Andy, coming to you from the United Kingdom.
And I'm Scott from the lovely streets of Toronto today, and that is not at all what it's like here. We have got about the most miserable weather you can imagine.
Great time of year, isn't it? Well, anyway, welcome to the...
We're having the problem. It's supposed to be winter, and it's not winter, so...
Oh, right. That's even worse. That's even worse. Well, the good thing is, to cheer everybody up, we're here at the Tea and Timbits podcast, focusing on global perspectives on business development to help you prosper. This week, we are going to be talking a little bit more about complex sales. But before we get into that, Scott, do you have a story for us?
I do. I thought, this would be something that everybody has experienced and can relate to. I have been trying for weeks, actually months, to organize an event. And I have been trying to nail down the date, and it requires that the coordinators at the venue get back to me with a date. And they have not done so for a very long time. And I have been continuing to send out emails. And so here I'm kind of ranting and whatnot, but basically
it's your podcast. Rant away, Scott.
Thank you. I wasn't even getting an answer. I wasn't like, are my emails even being received? Is there anybody on did the guy, does he have anyway? The point that I wanted to share with everybody is it is okay not to have an answer. But it is not okay not to answer, if you know what I mean. So I would have been satisfied with, thanks, Scott. I know you're eager. Over here, we're just playing Sudoku with the schedules and trying to see where we can land everybody. If you can bear with me and I can ask for your patience for another 2 weeks, we're going to have a higher likelihood of scheduling you in. Okay, then I won't worry about it. And 2 weeks from now, I'll say any update on that if I haven't heard. But to not hear at all is, I think everybody has experienced that frustration. But it is a reminder to say that I think the expectation is that if I just wait, I'll have the answer very soon. And then it doesn't. Then you avoid it, and then all of a sudden, and it's just, so it's, anyway, I just wanted to share that. It's okay to not have an answer.
There's a phrase that you said there. I don't know if it was deliberate or if it's something you've used before, but it was very good. It's okay not to have an answer, but it's not okay not to answer. I like that. I like that a lot.
I just made that up. It was organic. So yeah, there you go. Just sign of life. Let me know where you're at, what's in the mix, why you can't come forward with the answer I'm looking for right now. Because otherwise I don't know what to do. I have to make other decisions. I have to go in other places, or I have to become one of those jerks who just keep following up, and I don't want to be that. So
that can be very frustrating for both sides, though, can't it? When you get into that situation where you don't know what's happening. And the problem is, if you end up getting frustrated and there is a genuine reason why they haven't answered, then that can end up souring relations as well. So it's always difficult to find that balance. So I think it's better to over communicate from both sides in these situations than to not communicate at all.
Well, thank you for empathizing. I feel better now.
You're most welcome. This is the advantage of having our podcast. We can say whatever we like and have our own opinions, and then confirm to ourselves that we are right. It's wonderful, isn't it? Now we will convince ourselves that we are right in how to handle complex sales, and we shall share our knowledge, expertise, and opinions with the listeners.
What do you want out of this conversation? So let's tee it up with
exactly. No. I think, from my perspective, what I want people to get out of this is to have an idea of, first of all, what a complex sale is, but secondly, how to navigate that and how to make a complex sale more manageable and less complex.
Mm-hmm. I like it. So what is a complex sale, Andy?
Well, in my opinion, a complex sale is when you have a situation whereby there are many factors to get towards a particular goal, and that particular goal may also in itself have many factors and many elements to it. So it's not a case of achieving B from A. It's a case of getting to Z following, many other paths than just the straightforward alphabet.
I'll add that, it can be complex because of the amount of balls in the air, the number of people
Yeah.
that you need to deal with, the amount of business scenarios that are impacted by the sale and
That's exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah.
and then there's sort of those extraneous things that happen to us in life, and connection issues, and illness, and new business priorities that pop up out of nowhere in the middle of that sales scenario. So I think there's I guess there's a process complexity that
Yeah, I think very often as well, a complex sale will involve multiple departments, multiple people, multiple organizations, and multiple stakeholders within an organization to get towards the goal that the business is going towards. And therefore, the sale is not simply dealing with one person or even a committee of people. It is dealing with a lot of people who are impacted by it. It is dealing with possibly even external people to help drive things forward, and there's more than just a, do you want to buy our solution will fix your problem. It is about putting together a jigsaw. It's about finding all of the pieces, putting them all together, and doing it in a way that works together with the company with the purpose of achieving the goal.
Yeah, and sometimes you're sort of building the pieces as you go.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, one of the biggest challenges, of course, with a complex sale is presenting your solution. As a service provider or product provider of a solution in a complex sale, one of the challenges is actually presenting that to the decision makers, to the decision committee, to the company, whoever other people who are involved as your direct stakeholders. And what I find that a good approach is to have 3 scenarios, and each of those scenarios end with the desired outcome, end with that goal that you have agreed on. However, they are, in many ways, you're giving them a map, and you've got 3 different paths that they could take, but you're addressing on that journey, there are going to be dragons, there are going to be, warriors, there's going to be lots of danger, there's going to be cliffs, there's going to be mountains, there's going to be a number of challenges along this journey, no matter which path you take. However, these are the 3 different options, and it can be that one of them requires less resources, one of them is going to get you there quicker, one of them is going to get you there costing less. It can be as simple as that, but usually in a complex sale there's many factors. And I think a mistake that a lot of companies make when they are discussing a complex sale is that they try and focus only on the positives. Oh, well, if you go down this path, you're going to achieve it because of this. And they don't address the negative impact that these changes will have, because a complex sale requires a complex change management process as well. And change is something that people will often resist. And in an organization of any size, if you are making changes, people will resist it to some extent. And so you've got to make sure that there's an element of accepting of that, discussing that, and planning around that as well in the solution that you come forward.
I have 2 questions. The first one is, have you been inside my head all week and following my so because I have so many points I've just scribbled down to respond to everything you've just been saying, but before I do that, what percentage of the deals that you get involved with and the deals that you think that our audience gets involved with would be described as complex sales?
From my perspective, most of my sales are complex sales.
One way or another, right? So I think it's good to think of it and prep yourself for managing the uncertainty and all the permutations that you're about. So having an approach and a mindset right from the get-go that I wish it could go smoothly according to my textbook process map, but it's not going to. If it does, then you're in the right. But if you can go in thinking, okay, I'm gonna have to be ready to be dynamic, I think that will alone provide a lot of value.
Yes, that's right. And I even if your sale is a very straightforward sale, having in mind the potential pitfalls and the potential challenges that the customer may face on the journey to get towards their goal isn't a bad thing, you know, and it's going to help them to address it, because they're going to be very suspicious if you're just, you know, throwing them roses and there's not going to be any thorns. You know, they're going to be very suspicious. They're going to start to think about, well, maybe this isn't the right solution for us. Whereas if you are upfront, you are honest, you are clear about, you know, what are the dangers on the way, then they are much more likely to choose one of the paths that will help them to get there with the least pain, or maybe even with the most pain, but with achieving the goal a lot quicker, whatever
Okay,
it may be.
so here's why I thought you'd been sort of inside my head following me around all week, is because we've had a couple of scenarios that fall into this category where
Okay.
we, well, I mean, they all fall into this, some variation of this category. We have, well, we coach on being curious and asking questions and understanding all these sort of permutations. But it can be, we can fall into the trap of going too far down and following each thread further than we should. And our counterpart, our client, our prospect will quite often kind of enthusiastically go there with you, because you're satisfying their itch and their desire to talk about their problems and their challenges. And so then all of a sudden it just kind of balloons. And that can be detrimental to why the client called you to begin with, and actually providing clarity to the original problem. So my first thought on listening to you was like, oh yeah, that's like this scenario that I've been in. And what sort of we're coming around to is, we've got to have a parking lot. We've got to be able to say, and even in front of the client, is this worthwhile to go down here, or should we acknowledge that it exists and put it aside without forgetting about it? The second thing that I wanted to react to from what you just said was, I love what you're saying about having options for the client. And we have found that you have to read the room when you do that. And some of the counterparts that you're, you know, in this exchange with, your prospects, your clients, have the capacity, the capability of also managing the analysis and the consideration of those options simultaneously, logically considering them, prioritizing them, and selecting the one that's optimal to get them where they want to go. And some do not. And in my experience, when there's a challenge managing those, it can kill the deal. It can be very disruptive and distracting. We will therefore, and in a scenario that we're in right now, decide to adjust so that we have those options in our back pocket, but we don't necessarily present them until we outline the recommended trajectory we think the client or the prospect should go on. And like you said, we need to tell them about the thorns. Like, I like that. Okay, we want you to go here. We want you to be really clear, or we want you to, we want to be really clear. We want you to be aware that it brings up these risks and these considerations and these change management impacts on your business, and let them digest that. Because I think it's easier to go, yep, okay, thank you. Or if they react to one of the thorns in a significant way, and it becomes a sticking point, that's when you say, all right, hold on, before we get too wrapped up in this, we do have an alternative that avoids that thorn. It has all of its own sort of permutations or considerations and thorns. But now what do you think about this? And so I do think, anyway, to react to what you just said, I love it all, but there's a couple of real life situations that we happen to be in right now where we're doing something close to what you said, but in a slightly different approach. What do you think about that reaction that I just had?
I think there's definitely scenarios where holding back can be very sensible, because, as you say, in a room there can be some people who understand it and can see beyond it, can see their path forward under any of those challenges, any of those scenarios, because the goal is the most motivating thing for them. However, there are often people in the room who are as we said, scared of change and will resist it, and we'll hear about these potential dangers, and that's all they'll focus on, and
Right.
that's where they'll sit, and they'll go, well, I can't handle that. That's not going to help us if we're going to spend that much money, or we're going to need that many resources, or it's going to have this much impact on our manufacturing or our processes or our operations. Then we can't do it.
Right.
And that can be, so there's positives and negatives with both sides of that. I feel that if you present 3 options, and those 3 options have bigger pains and gains in certain areas, then you're sort of then focusing on certain departments, certain people, certain individuals with certain skills. And then ultimately it will come down to the leader's preferences within those as to which of those is the least challenging, but is ultimately still going to get them towards that goal.
Right.
I have found that if you have less than 3 options, that's a bad thing, because status quo suddenly comes back in as being an option. If you have more than 3, then people become overwhelmed and they do nothing as well. But 3 seems to be an optimal number where people are comfortable to choose one of those 3 and go ahead either with you or with someone else, but are aware of the circumstances that they're engaging themselves with, and they will still move towards their goal.
Right. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. That was a good chat, Andy. So I think to summarize that, a few of the points that we've raised here are: 1, acknowledge to yourself and to your team, and even to the client, that there's going to be complexity here, and we're ready for that. And we have an approach that is, practiced for managing that. So go in with the mindset that you're going to encounter this, and that will help you get through it. Have options and make sure that you're prepared to present them. And I think one of the things that we're both saying is, but don't overwhelm the conversation and your counterpart. So have an appropriate number of options. I think there's a scenario where you have to read the room and choose when you bring forward some of those variations. And if it's appropriate, though, you can have a very good, rich, fruitful conversation, considering all the options at once.
Fantastic. Well, if anyone wants to get in touch with us and find out more or hear any more about complex sales, then they can do so by going to tandtimbits.com, where there are multiple ways to get in touch and to sign up to listen to our podcast on a regular basis. Thank you very much, Scott.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks, everybody.